ladies, gents, non-binary baby doll. I am coming back today with a new video that is a chit chat get ready with me video. I already started filming, but then my battery got full and I actually didn't like the previous footage, so I deleted all of it. I'm just going to start right back over. But people have been requesting a chit chat get ready with me video for such a long time because I haven't done one in a minute. So I thought I would do one today. I did my foundation already, and I primed my face with the Wet n Wild face primer as per usual. And then I actually used Fenty Beauty's Pro Filtr Soft Matte Foundation in the color 390. I actually use this for a foundation. And right now I'm using the LA Girl Pro Conceal to, you know, do my thing or whatever. So if you're unfamiliar with She's Gotta Have It, it is actually a revival of a film by Spike Lee that was made back in the mid to late 1980s. I think the year was 1986 that came out. And if you're unfamiliar with Spike Lee, he's one of the most famous and accomplished African-American film directors in history. He is coming back, making a comeback with the film She's Gotta Have It, or the series rather, She's Gotta Have It, that's based off of his film from the 1980s. She's Gotta Have It, in a nutshell, is about this black, polyamorous, pansexual woman who lives in gentrified Brooklyn or whatever. Her life is just kind of a roller coaster because she's juggling such a vibrant I'm jealous, a vibrant, you know, sex and dating life. She has like 3 dudes that she's dating and talking to. I mean, first of all, they're all polar opposites of each other. Like, one is kind of like the stereotypical light-skinned dude who's full of himself and thinks he's a shit or whatever, and his name is Greer. The other one is Jamie Overstreet, I believe that's his last name, but he's like a wealthy black man who's married to this, I think she's black, she's light-skinned, kind of racially ambiguous looking or whatever. He's married to her, and so yeah, she's sleeping with a married man. The other one is Mars, who is this Afro-Latino dude who stays down the block from her, and he's just kind of full of life. He's a mess. He's such a mess, but he's low-key my favorite of the 3. The 3 dudes are unaware of each other at first until like the later half of the series, which is kind of funny because the first film, the actual film, they're all aware of each other. So that was kind of a different thing for the show, for them all to not know about each other at first. My opinion about the show that everybody wants to know. I didn't hate it. Like, I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it, to be honest with y'all. And to be honest, like, I'm a little skeptical when it comes to Spike Lee and his hot takes on black women in film. As a black woman, as a black female film director myself, I just like, I don't know, sometimes it's like a hit or miss when it comes to Spike. On one end, I do admire him for all that he's done simply as a black filmmaker, but on the other end, I'm like, sometimes, like, ooh, his plots and the premise of what he's trying to go off of is just like kind of like problematic just a little bit. Like, his film Chirac was like a hot ass mess. Like, I only saw bits and pieces of it because I just was curious or whatever, but the whole idea of like black women stop having sex with dudes so that they'll stop killing each other, like, what the hell? Like, I don't know, it's like he has his great moments like Do the Right Thing, and then he has this moments where I'm like, Spike, WID, what are we doing? In general, I didn't dislike it. It just wasn't my favorite thing. Like, I'm probably not going to watch it again, if that gives you an idea of how I feel about it. In my opinion, it wasn't terrible, but I do think it could use some improvements in terms of like how they approach political subjects such as black women. Like, I mean, like, you know, black women from the LGBT community, and, you know, specifically like how they approach these certain topics and how they should portray them in in the show. For example, Nola is pansexual, but that was kind of like barely talked about in the show. Like her pansexuality kind of became an afterthought. Someone's sexual orientation is a very vital part of them. That's something that informs who they are, how the world views them, how they see the world. Like, you know, it's something that you don't really skip over. Just as much as like being black, like your race is an important part of your identity, so is someone's sexual orientation. And so her being pansexual kind of became like something that wasn't really visited a lot, and the times that it was visited was just kind of like, the only time that her pansexuality came up was like when she was fed up with the dudes. Like her pansexuality was, you know, she hooked up with a woman after she was sick and tired of the dude she was dealing with or whatever, or like she was having difficulties with the guy she was dealing with. So it's just kind of like damn, you know, like her female lover could have used a lot more airtime, and her pansexuality in general could have worked a lot more with it instead of just using it, you know, to their convenience as writers. I'm not from the LGBT community, and I cannot, I'm straight, so like what I say is kind of, you know, you take it with a grain of salt. But I mean, if it was up to me, I just wouldn't think that's like, you know, adequate representation, especially because I have black female friends who are pansexual or whatever. I just wouldn't think that that is something that they would be a fan of, how they should be portrayed, you know. I think that this show has potential. Like, I do. Like, I don't think it's a terrible show. I do think that it has its redeeming qualities, but at the same time, there's definitely more room for improvement. Like, how they handle like socio-political views is kind of like, it was almost like a parody of like social justice, which is kind of annoying, like because social justice shit has become so commercialized, like it's not even funny. Like everything we watch now is supposed to be geared towards, you know, millennials who are all into social justice and whatever. Like that's cool and everything, but like don't make the shit corny, like you know, and be genuine about it. The fact that she's like pansexual and she's polyamorous, like there's no issue with her being polyamorous, but like they didn't really give a great representation of polyamorous people as well. The way that they did it, it just came off as if she had commitment issues. Not like she was genuinely polyamorous and she was genuinely like invested and multiple people, if you get what I'm saying. Like the way that her being polyamorous was portrayed was just kind of like, it wasn't responsible the way that they did it, in my opinion. Like it just didn't come off as if she was genuinely like polyamorous. It just came off as if she just had trust issues and she had commitment issues and she just didn't want to stay with one person. Not like she was genuinely polyamorous and she genuinely was like invested in each of these people. And it doesn't help the fact that she's a pansexual woman, and you know, pansexual and bisexual women, they all struggle with that you know, dumbass trope where it's like they're cheaters and they can't commit to one person, and that they, you know, they're greedy or whatever. Like that didn't help. And if they're planning on renewing it for another season, I feel like there should be more time giving more fluidity and more honesty to her being polyamorous and pansexual. Because to be honest with y'all, it almost came across as if they just threw that in there. They threw that in there because they know that pansexuality, bisexuality, all these different sexualities besides gay and straight are becoming more visible and are getting a lot more attention. And the fact that polyamorous relationships are becoming kind of more visible and more talked about, it just seemed as if they threw that in there just to... It seemed as if they're using that as a marketing tool is what I'm trying to get at, and I'm struggling to say. Like, it wasn't as if they genuinely wanted to make her that. It's just that they threw that in there because they know, like, okay, this is what's popular with these kids nowadays. Like, the whole... pansexuality, polyamorous, or whatever the hell these kids are doing nowadays, like that shit is popular, so let's go ahead and make her that. Because in the original film, she wasn't, like, it wasn't made clear that she was pansexual or polyamorous or anything. So I just think that's kind of convenient how she is now in this film. And it's not really an issue that she is now in this film because it makes sense. But it's just like, if you're going to do that, do it the right way. You know, do it with integrity, as, you know, people who claim, who are trying to make representation for people who don't be getting a reputation that they need. This goes along with the idea of like representation really ain't enough. And I've written about this before on my blog, but I'm like, you know, representation and diversity in film is not enough. Because just because you have people of all these different, I am trying to blend this concealer on the top of my head, but it's not working. Anyways, but like, just because you have people of different identities and different backgrounds in your shows doesn't mean that you actually are being diverse or that you're doing diversity any justice. There's a difference between being diverse and tokenizing people. You can have a black girl on your show, but if she's just there to be a sidekick, if she's just there to be like, okay, we got a black girl on the show, everybody shut up, diversity, diversity, like, what's the point? Because you're not helping anyone else out. It's a very shallow take to just leave representation and diversity simply at eye value, leaving it simply as just put these people in the show so that we can fill a quota. I didn't really read people's I didn't read people's opinions about the show because I wanted to have like, you know, an opinion for y'all that's not biased and influenced by anybody else. But for me personally, I don't think the show is bad. I do think there's cool moments in the show. The show definitely is a product of Spike Lee. In terms of like cinematically, like you can watch this film and know that Spike Lee made this because his style is very evident in this type of film. Like the very close shots of people talking, monologues that break the fourth wall where the characters are actually talking to the audience. You know, like there's choices in it that makes a lot of sense because that, you know, that gives it the comedic feel that it's supposed to go for, because this is supposed to be a comedy, by the way. I like how at the beginning of each show there's those montages of Brooklyn. I love the score of the show. Like the soundtrack is on point. You know, there are a lot of neo soul, R&B, jazz type of music that's being played throughout the show, and I was a fan of that, and it definitely is still true to the original movie because that's how it was. Very similar. It was like a modernized version of the score in the original film, so I thought that was dope. I also think it was pretty interesting how at the end of each song they showed like a screenshot of the single or album cover of the song that was playing, and it's almost like you're going through someone's playlist and they're showing you like what they listen to or whatever. Like I don't know exactly what the goal of that was to be, but I just thought it was pretty cool. I really like Mars. Mars is probably one of my favorite characters, and to be honest, Nola was one of my least favorite characters. She's actually low-key insufferable. She's pretty self-centered. Like she only thinks about herself and how things impact her. She has her moments where she is completely selfless, like when she got herself arrested to save homeboy who was about to get arrested because he got accused of defacing someone's property. Like she has those moments, but for the most part, she kind of treats her partners like they're convenient. And that would be cool, I guess, if both of y'all felt that way, but they don't. So Mars genuinely cares about her and he genuinely like wants to be with her, but Nola is like, My contour kind of looks weird. Whatever. Oh, another thing that I kind of was a little annoyed about was really wish that her friendships with her friendships were a little bit more, I don't know, the show was just so focused on these men. It's just very focused on these three men, and everything else just becomes an afterthought. Like Nola's sexuality, the fact that she's polyamorous, and then also her friendships with other black women. I'm just like, okay, if we're gonna have a show about a black woman, I would like to see her friendships with other black women be given more like depth, you know what I mean? Like, because Nola is actually a terrible friend. she is a terrible friend. Like, at the times that her friends needed her, she was barely there. Or like the fact that she was sleeping with her friend's ex, and that, you know, her friend was low-key bothered by it. But it's just like, and she just went ahead and did it anyway. And the friend is Mars, is the dude that was her friend's ex, and she went ahead and slept with him. And whenever her friend gets in her feelings about it, she gets in, Nola gets all defensive and shit. Like, I don't know, she was just a terrible friend. Nola's character development could use work. There are definitely moments where I think, you know, there was definitely some really, really beautiful moments. Like, for example, there's this one part where it's towards the end of the series where Nola is in her living room, and she's like, I guess on a rotating stage. I guess that's what they put her on, a rotating stage. And the camera is still, and all you see is her rotating or whatever, like this, or whatever, on that little stage. It's really hard to explain because it's non-linear. It's not like a, you know, like a typical narrative shot. It was just like to symbolize her self-journey, I guess you could say. Like, her outfits were changing. You know, there were parts where she was crying. Like, she looked like her, you know, it was a very great moment for the actress herself. Like, she did a great job with that, because, you know, the fact that there was no dialogue, there's nothing else but her rotating on this stage and the camera is directly on her. You know, most people can struggle with that as actors. She made it very apparent that she is going through Nola's journey of finding herself and trying to figure out what she's trying to do and where she's trying to go. You know, she was emotional towards sitting at the rotation or whatever. And then there was this one part where Nola became out of focus, and she was still rotating, by the way, but she became out of focus, and behind her was a piece that she had painted that became in focus, and there was a quote by Audre Lorde, and I cannot think of what it said verbatim, but I'll put it somewhere. But essentially it was saying that, you know, she had to find herself or she'd get chewed alive. You know, like, she had to find herself and figure out who she was. Like, it was important that she was the one who defined herself. I actually think that should have been the end of the series. If that was my choice as a director, I would have made that the ending of the series instead of the whole Thanksgiving dinner thing. Another strong thing I thought was the fact that Nola made it you know, apparent to these other guys, like, I'm not your property, and I'm not your property, I don't belong to you, da da da. So there are very great moments in the show. Like, altogether the show isn't terrible, but it keeps improvement. Okay, so now back to makeup. I'm going to be using, I believe I'm going to be using this one from the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. I'm using this shade right here. And I'm going to use this in my crease. They need to give Nola a little bit more humanity. And if they plan on renewing the series, like, can she, like, treat her friends a little bit better? Like, her friend that was a single mom and had a child, and she was, you know, a dancer or whatever. Like, I really hate how they did that. They played her so bad. They portrayed her, Spike kind of made that, like, consequential in a didactic moment, I guess, if that's where he was going. Like, to try to say that, you know, modifying your body, you know, is terrible, and you can face these types of consequences, blah blah blah, being, you know, it just wasn't great. It just was really messed up how they played my girl. So I just want to see if this show is supposed to be adequate representation for Black women. You know, I just need to see a little bit more depth. I need to see a little bit more life, a little bit more, you know, substance, and more responsibility as to how they portray these characters. I'm going to be doing a glossy lid look, so I'm going to be using the NYX Intense Butter Gloss in the color Chocolate Crepe. Let's see how this goes. I saw this girl on another YouTube video use this gloss in particular. She used a different color. She used a gloss like a colored gloss to do a glossy lid look, and I was like, oh, that's smart, like, because that kind of, you know, that gives you less work to do or whatever. So let's see how this goes. Okay, now I'm going to use my finger to blend it out. Oh, hello. This is the look. I feel like the camera isn't really giving it justice right now. I'm going to add a little bit more.